I am super excited to introduce our final speaker of the night. So our final speaker is Jeff MacIntyre. So on the screen here, he has Connector, and I feel like that's a great summary of what he does. He's had an incredible career. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's also the leader of Fuckup Nights Kitchener-Waterloo, our sister chapter. But here are 3 fun facts that you don't know about Jeff and that you're not going to find out about online. So in October, Jeff was walking down Bay Street, and he asked a young woman to pet her dog. That dog is now his. That's an amazing story. Jeff once won a company competition for selling the most condoms to pharmacies and universities in Ontario. And Jeff had his friend and past Fuckup Night speaker propose to his wife for him. That's a pretty unique one. You should chat to him about it. Jeff, come on up here and share your fuck up.
Thank you. Proof positive. If you take anything away from this was the dog walking down Bay Street. I had half a bottle of wine in me, and I was going to meet Marcia, and I met this dog, and he's now famous. He has way more Instagram followers than I do, but this is Midtown Earl, and it was really hard. So if you hear anything tonight that I talk about, the takeaway is talk to people with dogs or pet people's dogs. You'll end up with one. So this is a little bit about me, and to be honest, this is the first time I've ever shared this. Appreciate Greg's comments and Emily's comments, but I dealt with this alone for the longest time, and it was really interesting. And this has been very cathartic having this discussion. So quickly about me, I have family, they're cool. Like there were times where I liked them, times where I don't, a little bit, sometimes supportive, sometimes not. Growing up, I had friends that were mile wide and inch deep. I had lots of contacts and people, but I didn't have true friends. I say that now. Some have gone away, but some are doing quite well. But the friends thing was, I was just that guy. Relationships, I was really good at walking away from them. I had a woman once I was dating, and she sang in the car, and on the way home, I was like, this has got to end. Like, she knows it, a true story. There's more, believe me. There's all kinds of different reasons. And school was interesting for me because I just did the bare minimum that was required. So I was always envious of my individual friends that were professionals and were working late and doing shit. And I just worked, left high school, got a job, cashed my paycheck, drank beer. It was awesome. It was really cool. But the interesting thing about the whole process is that I was extremely independent and introverted. And for an introvert to stand up here, when I was 19, I was introduced to this amazing elixir, and it made me talk and sing and dance, and it was called beer, and it was fascinating. Really opened up doors for me, but it gave me the power. But I'm kind of an ambivert, whatever, but as I moved forward, I just realized that I struggled all the time. I was that sweaty little kid, and I was nervous. So, go back a little bit, I had hair. I had so much hair. I owned a brush. I bought gel. It was fantastic. It was a big time in my life. Before I got a job, I was married, and the 3 weeks before my marriage, I had an interview for a position. They said, go have a great honeymoon, come back. It was a classic example, no job and whatever, but I was in love, so it was all good. And I landed my dream job. And the dream job was in drugs, Emily, but it was legal. I was in pharmaceutical sales. I know I was not a mule by any stretch of the imagination. But when I say living the dream, it was interesting. I was young, I was married. I spent the first 2 weeks of my career at the Banff Springs Hotel. This was the most amazing thing. While I was there, they were delivering my company car, setting up my expense account. I was traveling. I had a home office. At the time, before cool internet things and whatever, I was dealing with doctors and professionals, and I thought I really had my shit together. It was pretty cool. And the reality was that I was golfing on Wednesday as I was playing hockey in the winter, and everybody thought I was doing fantastic. So I inherited versus my rail, and I think this is important. And if one person in this room is struggling with this, I think that will be a success for me to understand that I'm not alone in this whole process. So on the outside, I had the top sales in the division. I had the highest market share in Canada. I worked for Johnson & Johnson. I had a great brand. I could open up doors easily, and it seemed really easy for me initially. But the reality was, my numbers started to become a concern. Now, if you're a representative, you talk about things, and how it works is down the road, the doctor will write a prescription and they'll go to a pharmacy. So there's a lag between your sales. There's no sales at the time. You're basically just repping it and hoping that the doctor, and doctors are liars, they don't want to see you. They just basically want samples. My motivation to sell was really diminished in the sense that I was kind of riding the coattails of the people that were before me, but I was really concerned. And then I got more and more introverted with work and really isolated. So I worked from a home office, which I think is cool. I'm not good at that. I need people around. I need some interaction. So I was really starting to go into this dark, dark place. But the interesting thing was I was faking it to family and friends. It was making it look like everything was fantastic. And the bottom line was, in hindsight, I was really embarrassed, I was really confused, and I was really down. And I don't know if you call it depression, you call it whatever. I never really identified with it, what it was, but I was really in a dark, dark place. This is what I was selling to the world. This is not me, but I had hair like some of these guys. It was fantastic. But to me, this was it. Pharmaceutical sales was an amazing job when you come out of university to land this thing. And how I got the job was the way everyone should do this: pet dogs and talk to drunk people at bars. I met a guy and I was like, I'm gonna come work for you, and I'm finished. He's like, you're gonna work for me. This is gonna be amazing. And interesting enough, it worked that way. I finished school, I called him, he goes, you're not gonna believe this. There's a position opening in my territory. So this is what I was selling to the world and to my friends. And the reality, this is the first time I've ever shared this. It was dark. I was a very, very dark place. I was alone. I felt dumb. I was talking to doctors. I'm an arts grad, B average-ish, did what I needed to do to get done. I was embarrassed, but I wasn't really prepared to share that with anybody. I was finding more reasons to cancel appointments than to attend appointments. So if you looked at my schedule, we were supposed to see 6 doctors a day, and I would see 1 or 2. And bottom line, I was canceling. We got paid lunches every day, and to get receipts, I had to go out. So sometimes I'd put a suit on, go out for lunch, get a receipt, go home. And it was interesting because there was no lag. I was holding on to the smallest victory. I sold the most condoms. But what I did was, I knew that the universities, Waterloo, Laurier, and Guelph were all in my territories, had their year end, and it was very easy for me to load them up because I knew what their budget was. I sold all kinds of condoms that probably never got used, and I won. But the interesting thing was that might have been a $50,000 sale, but I had a $3.5 million budget, but I was so focused on the little shit that I didn't really focus on the bigger picture. I started comparing myself to others, and I really, really felt inadequate. I would go to these meetings, and I'd see these smart people. I was like, shit, what's wrong with me? Why can't I grasp this whole process? And I ultimately had a fear of what was next. So I talk about relationships, turn around, walk away, university, walk away. It was easy for me to do what was predictable for me. I quit. So I remember going to my boss at the time saying, you hired the wrong guy. I am so sorry. Here's my resignation. I didn't want him to be the fool. I was taking the heat for this whole process. And this was about as dark as it could be because I had no fucking clue what I was going to do next. This was crazy, but this was my pattern. Walk away, move on, find something else. I was in a relationship, young marriage. I remember thinking, I don't want to bring kids into this world. This world sucks at this time, but it wasn't the world, it was me. It was a really dark, dark place. So I go through the process, and it took me so long to even procrastinate to get to this point of the resignation that but it's like if anyone's ever reached out for counseling, you don't usually reach out for counseling the second something happens. It drags on and on and on. So by the time I did this, I met with them, and I was in tears, and I said, I'm sorry you hired the wrong guy. That's the first time I've ever shared this. So what happened next? My boss, my mentor, ripped up his resignation in front of me. And he said, I'm sorry. He apologized and said, I thought you were kicking it. And I've got way more problem children of the 10 reps in my territory. I thought you were doing well, and I'm sorry. I took the eye off the ball. He benchmarked me against the other people, and he started giving me perspective. And I really started to understand that maybe it wasn't such a shit show, and maybe I needed to move things forward. So that began my, Jeff MacIntyre's, journey of honesty. The most important tool I've got in my world is my mirror. I can look myself in the mirror, and if I convince that person sitting there across from me that I'm not trying to sell that person, but I'm being honest and open with that person, I feel really good about the contributions that I'd made. Training is help required. I asked for help, and I started helping other people in return, and I started sharing how I was feeling and saying it's lonely out there. There's some bad shit going on, and it looks cool, but if it's not cool, let people know. I felt like I belonged to something, and to me that was critical. I started realizing that I wasn't alone anymore. I was part of a team. We were all there and supporting each other, and it was cool. This is the most amazing thing. I realized, and I still to this day know, that I'm not the smartest person in this room. If there's 250 people in this room, I'm the 251st smartest. That's always been my goal. So I traded in intelligence for empathy. And I started realizing the most important thing I can do is listen to people and understand people because they might just be like me. That was customers, that was everything. Trading empathy, intelligence for empathy was the best thing I've ever done. And if I encourage everybody to understand that the stuff you're saying is really not that important sometimes. You have 2 ears, 1 mouth. Listen twice as much as you talk. Listen and understand, you'll be successful. And it's still building this every day, confidence every day. So I bounced back from it, which is pretty cool. There were casualties. I'm a statistic. My marriage didn't last. Not as a result of this, but just as a result of this whole journey. And there's a bunch of things that went on. And it's tough. We're great friends now. We have 2 wonderful children. But the marriage was a casualty. I probably could have been retired if I stuck with this. Pharmaceutical sales is a good gig, and I know people that started with me and they're retired right now. It fucking makes me angry. I lost some friends through this whole process because I had to show vulnerability, and some people just run. When you share this and you share your concerns, they're really not in it for the wrong reasons and they're uncomfortable, so I lost some. But the most important thing is I lost time. I lost hair and I lost time. Those are the 2 things that happen. I can't get either of them back. To me, that was interesting. The positives, I'm doing exactly what I love every single day now as a result of this whole process. I have an incredibly supportive network. On the fuck-up theme, I blew a tire on the 401 on the way here today from Kitchener. It was amazing. I sent Marcia. I go, Marcia, don't worry, we got this. It's on brand. However, so I was on the side of the road, and I'm waiting for the tote for CAA to come, and I got to do some business. And the cool thing about this whole process, I called 3 people, and all 3 of them said, where are you? I'll stop what I'm doing. I'll come and get you. I'll take you to Toronto. I'll bring you a car. That, to me, is super powerful. You don't get that from taking from people all the time. You do that from giving from people, from understanding, and have friends that are a mile deep and an inch wide. To me, that was critical. I can clearly define my day. I spend 1/3 of my day coaching, mentoring, giving people time, listening, shoulder to cry on, telling them their business idea sucks, like being super honest with things. 1/3 of my time I do business development, and 1/3 of my time I bolt onto rockets, startups, interesting opportunities, and my line is, it's either going to hit the moon or it's going to blow up. Regardless, it's going to be spectacular. And it's a really, really cool place to be. I do something every day that scares me. This scares the shit out of me. This is the most vulnerable I've ever been to a bunch of strangers. I've done it one-on-one, and it usually involves alcohol. I am sober, but this, not every day. Not like, nothing to clap about. I had a beer earlier. I do something that scares me every day. Next Sunday, I'm teaching a spin class for charity. I've never taught a spin class before. What the fuck? And the coolest thing is a friend of mine asked me to officiate his wedding in June. And I went, yes. I said, as long as we don't talk about spirituality or say the word forever, because I don't believe in either of those. But the positives of this whole process is wisdom. So I screwed up my relationship. That's my fuck up. On a good note, a little over 2 years ago, I entered a contest online for a public wedding. I didn't tell my girlfriend at the time that I'd put our name in to have this public wedding in the middle of a summer solstice street festival in Waterloo. 2 years ago tonight, we were interviewed and we were chosen as the couple. And 2 years ago tomorrow, Valentine's Day, it was announced on CBC that we were having this public wedding. The cool headline for CBC was, they're not even engaged, but they're getting married. Gotta love the angle. So here's my beautiful moment. Now, that's my lovely bride who obviously has some visual problems and doesn't understand what I look like. But here's 150 of my friends surrounded by about 5,000 other people at this street festival, total strangers. And the funny part is just behind this, there's a homeless guy washing his hair in the fountain. My brother posted something today and said, there are good guys out there. This is the Valentine's thing. There are good guys out there. We're just ugly. And I thought it was fantastic. But on a positive note, I shared this with Marcia yesterday. I read a story yesterday about a man who had just buried his wife. They'd been married for 60 years. And he said, and I think this is so beautiful, he said, I was able to fall in love 8 times in my life because she changed and because I changed and because we changed. She moved through the whole process, and I fell in love with her 8 times over the period of time. So there's my moment. I'm going to fuck up. You're going to fuck up. I'm Jeff MacIntyre.
That was awesome. Jeff, thank you so much for sharing that story. What a beautiful ending. I think that's such an amazing story, how you got married. I think your story is so relatable to anybody in the audience who's a young professional or somebody who's transitioning in their career, especially I think working in tech. It could be so intimidating and it looks so glamorous on the outside, but you don't know what people are going on, what people are going through on the inside. So definitely have that empathy. And if you're going through that kind of transition or you're not sure you're in the right role for yourself, open up about it, speak to others, and you don't know what's going to happen. It could be a really positive experience for you as well, sharing that. So Jeff, thank you for sharing. Let's open it up to some Q&A.
Short questions. The bar is going to be open right as soon as I'm done. So.
Hey, Jeff.
Hi.
Can you tell us about how you now own the dog that you ran into on Bay Street?
Yeah. So I had a half a bottle of wine in me. I was walking down Bay Street, and I was on my way rushing to meet Marcia, and I said, can I pet your dog? And she said, yes. I said, this is my wife's dream dog, a gray brindle French bulldog. And she goes, are you looking for one? And I said, yes. She goes, would you like this one? And I said, yes. If she's in here, I apologize. She met a guy, they got a dog. He ghosted her, ghosted the dog. She was living at Yonge College on the 50th floor, and she goes, this just isn't fucking working. So 2 days later, we went down, I got the dog. I called my wife, I said, I'm a little drunk right now, but I think I just got us a dog. I now have 3 dogs. Perfect. I'm out of here. Oh, there's a question.
What does being a connector mean to you? I'm just curious what that means and how that applies to in your day-to-day life.
Yeah, so if I open up my my inbox right now, you would see, seriously, this is not an exaggeration, 10 or 15 requests today from people that want to meet someone. Emily, I had a meeting with David Chilton this morning, who's a good friend as well, too. I just sent up a picture of you on stage. And interesting enough, so I just know people who know people, and that's really what it's all about. Chilton walked up to us this morning, and I was talking to a guy who was literally in the midst of deciding if he has to shut his business down. David walks up, who's brutally honest and wonderful, great sense of humor, and said, hey, I understand your business is doing really well. It looks great on social media, right? So the connector is simply that. I know people who know people or need to know people, so recruiting if need be, advice, talent, all kinds of things. I should be a recruiter because I'd make a shit ton of money on salary. I don't. That's my giveaway piece, so.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Vero. I was looking at your profile, and I actually have a very similar job outlook compared to you. And when you started flipping through the slides, I was looking for relatability, and I got scared. I was wondering if you could just maybe talk to me about how you become a connector, aside from just the obvious, like talking to people.
So the cool thing is 2008, 2009, the world ended, the financial world collapsed and everything. And I worked to get my own exit out of it. So basically I took the recession off with pay, and in doing so, I was able to give, right? So my model is put more credits in the bank than debit. So in doing that, I made sure I met the right people. That was always my point. If I don't like networking events and stuff like that, but if I know that the CEO of a company there or someone I want to use, I walk right in, I interrupt them because that's what you do at networking events. I shake their hand and then I leave. But to me, and it's never about what can you do for me. It's always what can I do for you. So that's the piece of the puzzle that I think was super effective. So I wish everyone should do it, but it's really difficult. People want to be it, but you got to earn it. I am here to have a coffee or a beer with anybody that ever needs one. That's my commitment to you, and that's how you become a connector. Yes, sir.
Cool. So I have a question. I'm Roberto. I was on stage just 5 minutes ago. So you are the most extroverted introvert I ever met.
Yes,
you had a
I'm an
public marriage.
ambivert.
Yeah, you had a public marriage. You're on stage right now. How does an introvert become this extroverted?
Beer.
That's a good one.
You know what? Honestly, I have to push myself. I have tricks and tips to do it. I know that I have a mission wherever I go. I go in, I need to meet 3 people. I always drive myself. I never rely on somebody else to be stuck. Like I'm always in, I have an escape plan, if that makes any sense. So my lovely wife loves to travel and she'll say, I'm thinking of going away. It's like, good, because then I get to spend the weekend just with the dog and other, and other people. But I still spend a lot of time with friends, but I really have to buffer my time. And when I start getting uncomfortable, I'm out of there. So good luck. It's not easy.
Let's do one more. I saw another hand up, and then we'll cap it off there.
How does one make money being a connector?
Well, you don't. When people know what you need, so what happens is I talked about a third of my time I give away, a third of my time I do fee-for-service business, and I'm a salesperson, so to me, that's how I'm making my money. And then ultimately it's who has something and they're trying to reach an audience, who can I work for? I don't have jobs. Once it starts to look like a job, I scram pretty quickly, but I have a performance-based or consulting agreement or sales agreement with a bunch of different companies and somehow pays enough. But I'm still a shit show, don't get me wrong.
That's a good note to end on. I'm still a shit show. Aren't we all, though? That's what tonight is all about.